What's going on, reefers? Blaine here. I'm with Dave. Thank you so much for having me. We're hanging out here in the backyard. Frank's trying to hide from the camera. He's over here, but where do I even start, right? We're hanging out in the backyard. We've got 2 plumbed-in systems. We're going to check out the reef tank in the house here soon, but
we got to take advantage of the sunlight because we're entirely outdoors right now. And these are the sunlit frag tanks. They've been out here for over 20 years now, different iterations of it, but we've had outdoor frag tanks for over 20 years. Each one's 180 gallons. Most common question, what do you do when it rains? I stay inside the house because it's dry. Guess what? The fish don't care because they're already wet. We're in California, Los Angeles. We get no rain here. So for the amount of surface area that we have over the 2 180 gallon frag tanks, whole system volume is 1,500 gallons. If we get an El Nino, hopefully it doesn't affect the system salinity at all.
Is there a specific reason why you went with having some tanks outside? Was it the idea and concept of seeing them in a natural sunlight behavior? Was it having the room, just having more space in general, not having more tanks in the house?
I can say this because I'm a member of the tribe. Cheap Jewish son of a gun, and I wanted to grow acroporas without having to spend the money on lights. It's all plumbed together. You'll see the 750 inside in a little bit. These tanks outside grow about 10% of the algae the indoor tank does with Radion lights. And the most important part is for the last 20 years, we don't sell anything. We give everything away. So everything you see growing out here is stuff that either is outgrown from one of my aquariums, or for the last 6 or 7 years, people just bring me stuff. And so that's what these are. These are just pay it forward aquariums.
That's awesome. So really cool. And you know what? I love too that they are true to themselves, right? The tattered up side. So overall, what's been maybe some of the bigger issues of trying to run some tanks outside?
Bigger issues is every single outlet is GFI. And then thank God they developed GFIs that have audible alerts. So, you know, I don't come out, like when I say I haven't been out here since September, I kid you not, I'll go 3-4 weeks and never come outside. And then just keeping the temperature, keeping it warm enough in the winter as the system's expanded. And in the summer, we get up to 117, 118 degrees here. And all we use is fans. And you can see the fancy fans on top of the frag tanks. So there's 2 fans there. There's 1 fan over the 340 gallon sump that's kind of to your left there, sitting on the ground. And there's 2 fans over the 750 up to 100 degrees outside. These fans will keep the tank at right about 80 degrees, maybe 81. And then when it goes over 100, the awning comes out automatically over the top of the tanks. If there's no wind, if the wind's too much, the awning stays in and it puts shade over the tanks, and that will keep at 117 degrees with the fans. The system never goes past 81 degrees.
Obviously, I cannot wait to take the look inside, but I love seeing this. This is, you know, what makes this tank tick, right? In reality, it seems like.
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends on how you look at things. There's not a lot out here. There's the top tank there, which is become a chaetomorph type tank and just full of algae and stuff like that. Has a red dragon or bubble king skimmer tucked in here. Okay, so that's the skimmer that sits there and runs. I do have to clean the strainer. Well, if you could see in here, the strainers are covered in algae.
Yeah.
So the skimmer's barely working. We have a 4,000 gallon per day RO system, and half of the RO wastewater goes through the skimmer collection cup and it dumps out to the sewer line. The equipment on the wall, there's a pair of Abyss pumps. There's a 160 watt UV up here on the wall. That's a backup heater in case we need it.
Okay.
All the top off that goes through here is Kalkwasser. The system today it was probably 60 degrees here. When it rains, we evaporate out over 20 gallons of water per day, and everything goes in Kalkwasser. In the event that the pH gets too high, over 8.5, this valve kicks in and it bypasses the Kalkwasser reactor.
Gotcha.
And goes like that. During the summertime, we will go through 75 to 90 gallons per day of water.
Oh my gosh.
Imagine, we clearly don't carry buckets of that in anymore.
Right.
So this is a 4,000 gallon per day RO system. This 4,000 gallon per day amazing DI filter, the filter itself, these cost like $140. Now think of how much your 100 gallon per day one costs. And I think we've been up with this 4 years now, I've replaced it once. We do run ozone, so there's a big ozonizer inside the tank. And I think that's it for our equipment.
Nice. Well, I mean, it is obviously not just a little bit of equipment, but I mean, you guys, when you see this tank, you're not going to believe it. I mean, you're going to need to have pieces of equipment like that to run a kick tank like that inside.
I just don't like doing stuff. So whatever is the simplest way that I don't have to worry about, I do it. I'm fortunate that my wife and I can afford to do what we want to do with the tank. And so we buy the things that we know are reliable. Sometimes, like a Biz, they're the most expensive in the world. And then sometimes they're, not the most expensive things in the world. It's just what's going to work right long term.
Well, I'm glad we were able to start out here because, as we can see, getting darker, but let's make our way inside and let's check out the tank. All right, Dave, we've made our way inside now. I got the chance to sit down and look at this amazing system. Holy cow.
Thank you very much.
Unbelievable. Outside was really cool, but this is
warmer tonight.
Warmer and even more wicked. Let's start off with the size of the tank. How big is this system?
This is 750 gallons. It's 10 feet long. It's 4 feet front to back. It's 30 inches tall. It's made out of 1.5 inch acrylic by Brian at Titan Aquatics in Arizona.
Man, and you said earlier on, it is made specifically for you, right? You can get up on this tank, you can lay down on those braces in the middle, and there's no worry because it's made specifically for your body, exactly for you.
Yeah, my previous tank was 96 by 33 by 28.5 tall. The reason it's 28.5 is because that's my armpit to my fingertips, so I could reach the bottom of the tank. When we had this one built, I wanted to go taller, but I didn't want to go 36 because it's just too hard to reach the bottom, so we went with the 30, and then 48 to the back wall, and I realized I'm never going to be able to reach the back of the tank. So I talked to Brian, and he's like, well, tell me how much you weigh, which every guy wants to share that if they're my size. But I told them, and so they ran my weight through the software they have that builds aquariums, and they came out with the thickness and the size of the bracing, because I wanted the biggest openings possible that support my weight. So I literally climb on top of the tank and lay with my belly on top of the braces. Yes, it overhangs, but it doesn't go in the water. And I can sit with my arm going all the way down the back wall of the tank and glue stuff, pick stuff up, take photos one day if I wanted to.
So cool that this tank was specifically made for you. Obviously, the reason that this tank even came to fruition was because of a situation that happened with a previous system and all that, right? So let's kind of go a little bit over that and how this tank ended up coming to this position here and why you have it now.
So if anyone's seen me on YouTube or any of the forums for years as Oh Too Many Fish, I've had a 400-gallon aquarium, which was where we're sitting right now, for a long time. And after 20 plus years, the tank had been custom built for me as well, the 28.5 dimensions, and it was an acrylic aquarium with an entirely open top. There was no bracing. And then one day I walked in and I said, why is there white in this seam? And so Brian, who built the tank on front of us now, I called him up and sent him a picture. He says, dude, that's gonna blow. I go, well, how much time do I have? He goes, when it looks like that, it's gonna explode. He goes, you need to hurry up on this. And Christmas Eve, we had friends come over with a used 560-gallon tank driven down from Tahoe. And we set it up in the middle of the room and transferred everything over from the 400 to the 560. And that tank was 10 feet long, 30 inches front to back, and 36 inches tall. It was the most beautiful aquarium I've ever had. The dimensions were phenomenal. The aquascaping carried over from one tank to the other, and it was just gorgeous. And so we had that tank. It was supposed to be a temporary tank for a year about. And then we had a disaster where on a Thursday night we treated for flatworms and we wiped out all our fish. And then on Saturday morning, right after that, we had a sump blow a seam and the top off kicked in and we lost all our corals. So you saw what we have outside right now in the Frag tanks. That's probably 25% of what we had at the time when we lost everything then. And this tank, for as full as it is probably 20% of what was in the 560 when it died, and we had acro colonies, I don't know, 7 or 8 bigger than basketballs. We filled multiple trash cans, emptying that tank out. And so it was really sad. And I said, told my wife, I think I want to take a break for a while. This is a sign. And my wife would not let me do that and said, you just order whatever tank you want. And we had this tank built, and she was supportive of it. So I called Brian up, and ironically, we had planned to build a tank this size for several years, and I had sitting in the backyard in a crate all the panels for this exact same tank in Starfire glass. And we had remodeled our house and our living room specifically to have a great big peninsula style tank, 10 feet long, 3 feet, 30 inches tall, 4 feet across. And after the sump outside blew and wiped out all the corals, I remembered I don't like glass aquariums. They suck sometimes. And so after having had at that point acrylic aquariums for 38 years, I guess, or so, we had this tank built to the exact same dimensions as the one sitting outside in a crate, and had it shipped out here. I designed the stand, which is kind of unique. I talked with a couple people that are engineers, and they said, yeah, no problem, that'll work. And hired a guy, and together we built it. It's made of 4x4 and 2x4 steel posts underneath. We had a cabinet maker come through and custom make the cabinetry. With the help of a friend, Tim Kelly, we designed an aluminum rack that's over the top of the tank, and then we use a garage storage lift that I modified. And so that entire canopy over the top goes all the way up to the ceiling, so I can get my fat butt to lay on top of the tank, and then I can lower it to whatever height I need.
Pushing the limits with your stand, but it does seem like you're also pushing the limits with what you're putting in the tank, right? The mixture of fish you've decided on, the community you've set up. I also love the fact that you're doing, once again, it looks like a completely mixed reef, but let's talk a little bit about this unbelievable fish selection. I've seen some amazing fish today, but the community that I'm being able to sit here and enjoy is really cool to see. And every single time I sit and wait and look, I see something new. A new fish pops out, something I haven't seen yet comes out in front of me. So really talk a little bit more about the community of fish you've decided on, how we've gotten to this, and then I know there's a couple really special and unique fish, one that just swam right in front of me, but yeah. We'll talk about a group of them, but let's talk about your fish a little bit.
The fish in the tank, if you're gonna start off with a username like Oh Too Many Fish, you've gotta live up to your username. And I've always liked lots and lots of fish, especially little fish. This tank has physically the largest fish I've ever owned in a reef tank. There right now, if we sat down and counted, we're probably about 120 plus fish in here. My record is at one point we had 160 in the 400. And there's all kinds of different things. I like my tangs. So in the tang wise, we have 3 yellows, 3 purples, flame, yellow eye, 6 hippos, chocolate mimic, which started out looking just like a yellow tang. It was that bright yellow, giant black, and then a sailfin tang, which we'll probably cover in a little bit specifically. There's so many fish in here you don't see. I like angels in my reef. So in the angels, we have newly arrived flame. He's gotten a little beaten up in the last 24 hours that he came in while he's getting used to everybody. We have a pair of bellas, a pair of venustus, a pair of flamebacks, a pair of goldens, or maybe as many as 4 goldens in here. If you've had a golden angel, you know you really never know. There's the regal, and I feel like I'm missing somebody probably. Yeah, it's hard to keep track of who
Right.
it is. We also have 2 big groups of assessors in the tank. There's a group of Randalls, McNalls, whichever they are, the blue-black ones. If Jake Adams were alive and here, he would smack me for not knowing which ones are which. Jake was a fan of the assessors. He was a fan when I had him in my old tank. We have the assessors, and the assessors are usually out when the lights are not on in the tank. And so we have a couple out tonight, which is kind of a rare treat. I love damselfish. If we spend enough time to watch and feed and see what comes out, there's probably 25 or 30 different damselfish in this tank. We have Banggai cardinals in the tank. There's, I believe, 3 pairs and a stray in the tank. 2 of the 3 pairs have been breeding regularly. The first ones had babies about probably 14 months ago. And we saw them holding the eggs. We saw the babies in the mouth. And then, as always, the babies are gone. Mouth is empty. And we're like, oh, what a bummer. And then a couple weeks later, I'm outside, and in the overflow of the frag tank, I see a couple of baby Bangais. And then probably 4 or 5 months after we'd known those were out there, I'm sitting here one day, and at the time we had a great big piece of Bali Slimer growing on the back wall. And out of the Bali Slimer comes like a half-inch tall Bangai. So one of them had been in here for like 5 months, and he's the stray, the smaller one in the tank that hangs out of our Bangais.
We've talked about your fish. We've talked about some of the corals. Let's talk about the maintenance of this tank. Obviously, there's going to be some maintenance that goes into this. Even though you did mention outside, you try to keep it pretty simple, you know, try to keep this as simple as possible. So that way the reef kind of does its own thing, runs itself.
Yeah, I've been doing this hobby a long time, and I am really lazy. I don't like doing water changes, so I don't do them. I don't like cleaning filter socks, so I don't do it. So whatever I can do to use technology or simplicity to make my life easier, I put into effect. A few years back, my dad had some health issues, and I walked out of the door of the house for 10 weeks. And in the 10 weeks that I was gone, the only thing that slowed the tank down was the CO2 tank ran out of CO2. And then when I came back from that venture, I put in the 50-pound tanks instead of 20 pounds, and I've gotten rid of that issue. So the tank itself will go pretty much indefinitely as long as there's not a leak or a piece of equipment doesn't fail on its own. We feed the fish. My wife feeds the fish all the time. I feed them when we remember. But for years, I've believed that you don't have to feed a reef tank because a good, healthy reef tank has got so much natural food that everybody should be able to eat. The only caveat to that is the Anthias. And so that's really the reason I feed. But I've kept all these other fish before and gone, you know, in a year fed live brine shrimp twice, and that's it.
That's amazing. I think people overthink reef tanks so much. Saying just that, I think about myself and how much I feed my tank at home. I'm sure people listening at home right now are like, oh man, maybe I don't need to be feeding that much. Maybe I don't need to be that all over my tank. Maybe I need to let the reef just kind of do its own thing. Gary said it in our tank tour with him when we were talking about it, the KISS method, right? You know, keep it simple, stupid, right? As simple as you can make these reefs, probably the better off they seem to be, right? When I'm sitting here looking at this, a tank that you've been able to get up and rolling in a short period of time and make it look like this, it's truly impressive.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of tech. First of all, I'm a gadget techno guy, so there's every kind of piece of gadget on here that you can buy as an Aquarius, that you want as an Aquarius, that you dream of as an Aquarius, and a lot of stuff I've custom built myself because I like that kind of stuff to automate things. And you know, you do this long enough, you always hear people say, oh, I never lost a fish, I never lost a coral. That means they've been in the hobby as long as, you know, Petco is open over the weekend, basically. If you've been in the hobby a long time, crap happens.
Things happen.
Things, you lose things. And my goal has been, okay, I don't want it to happen again. So when I see something that fails, I either find a way around it or I build something so it doesn't happen again. So there's a lot of technology on here. I have big controller system, but it doesn't control, it really watches. It watches, and the only things it controls is to stop things when they get bad. We put in last year the hydro system. We've wanted to cover and watch a whole lot of stuff, and it's just getting all the product because it's been so successful. Their stock kind of varies, but we've got, I think, 20 plus, maybe 23, 24 Hydros modules. They've been super supportive with tech support and getting me product when some of the product wasn't available. Richard, that's the Coral View rep for out here on the West Coast, awesome guy. I know you're going to see him later this weekend. He wanted me to be an adopter of it, and so inside the light canopy, there's 12 Radeon G6s. Is that the current one?
Yep.
Pros, not the blues. And there's nothing else in there, no other supplemental light.
How long do those run for?
till they burn out.
Gotcha. I love that. All day long, 24/7.
So, people are really strict about, oh, you got to have this lighting schedule and you can't mess with lighting schedule. So during the week, the lights come on. We get the back doors here face the east, so they get rising sun in the morning.
Gotcha.
During the week, the lights start ramping up starting at about 4:30, and they start dimming down at about, I think, 12:30, and they're off by 2. On the weekends, the lights turn on at 10 o'clock in the morning, because on the weekends, my wife and I are home doing stuff around the tank, and I want to see my fish. So they live by my schedule. Temperature-wise, you saw the outdoor tanks. We are not dialed in at 77.8 degrees all the time. Right now, during the wintertime, at night, the system's going to drop to 75 degrees, maybe 74. And if we get a hot day tomorrow, it's going to jump up to 79 every single day. And with the exception of the Achilles, which no matter what you do, will sometimes have ick. Today, it looks like it might be a good day. Nobody else has ick. We don't lose anybody to ick. Temperature fluctuates all the time. Corals are fine with it.
I feel like we could sit here and talk about this tank
I am
all
full
night.
of it. I can talk
all
forever.
night long,
Yeah.
right? I mean, whether it be the fish, the coral, the setup in and of itself, outside. I mean, we hung out outside for quite some time. Talked about Jake. I asked everybody beforehand. I ask every single person whenever I get the chance to come into their home. I'm seeing your beautiful system. You've been around a couple times around the block when it comes to the aquarium hobby. What's a piece of advice for the reefing hobby you would have?
Probably for the last few years is don't buy into the hype of names. They're just such a crock, and I'm sorry because you guys sell named corals, but I'm so tired of hearing about a holy grail this. I've been in this hobby a long time. These holy grail torches, they've been around for like 4 years now. Before that, there weren't any orange holy grail anythings. And then the other thing too, which is so important, which gets lost, is you got to pay this hobby forward. In the last 10 years, I've probably given away the size of a car in red Monty cap to every single person started an aquarium in Southern California. Give it away. And then we go to these shows, and one guy's calling it Red Mountain Lust, and the next guy's calling it, Copper Luck. It's the same red Monty coral, and they're putting these really high prices on it. I think that's just horrible. If you have the rare stuff, the really cool colored stuff, yeah, get your money for it, earn your keep. A good port, when we started this tank up 2 years ago, we had no corals because we lost everything. For the first couple months, the amount of coral people gave to me and said, here, take it. People were so generous. I mean, this tank got started with pay it forward, pay it back. These orange mushrooms in front of you, Art Cavallo. The orange mushroom rock over here, Art. There's corals in here from a reefer that passed away. There's probably, of all the coral you see in here, and there's hundreds of them, at least a third of these corals were given to me by people saying, you're going to grow it and you're going to give it away to somebody else, so take it. So without the generosity of my friends in the hobby, couldn't have gotten there. So do that with your, if you've got a whole lot of red Monty cap, then post it on your Craigslist, your Facebook, your local reefing community, and share it. Somebody needs it, somebody wants it, and it doesn't matter if it's a red cap or your friend turns around and gives you a cup full of crazy eclectus mushrooms, which are selling like crazy, or they're giving you these torches that you won't ever spend the money on, because that stuff will come back to you. Someone will grow it, proliferate it, and pass it off. So especially for like kids trying to get in the hobby now, it's just so expensive for parents to help them. So if you're being successful in the hobby, just give that extra stuff away. You don't have to frag and make money off of the simple corals or something that's a weed for you. Pay it forward.
Well said, a well put together tank. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for allowing me into your home. We're going to have dinner here soon, so thank you for that. I can't wait to have a beer as well, but this has been great, being able to hang out with you, talk about reef keeping, getting a reminder to myself just how awesome this community is, being involved in reefing in general. It's just so cool, everyone tied together. It's been amazing, so thank you so much for allowing me to stop by. If you guys have hung out all the way till the end, I want to say,
I dare you.
I dare you. I dare you. Leave a comment if you've hung all the way till the end. I want to say thank you so much. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you don't miss out on any future uploads.
And don't forget, behind me, live webcam. You think this is cool? 24 hours a day around the world, oh2manyfish.com. Enjoy it. Appreciate the tank.
Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you all soon.